Okay, I'm back again. So I'm catching up for all the weeks that I didn't do any live. So I wanted to show this because next week this will be gone as we clean up. And it's the same thing about garden aesthetic. Um, so we have two beds here, and they had corn. And I talk about, I try to encourage showing, having things in place and in action, so when people come, they can see, well, why should you do that? And you don't have to clear out everything. If it's disease, absolutely clear it out of your garden, but you can just chop and drop things in place and let them decompose. And what does that look like? It's fascinating if you have children, but you do have to get over that wanting it to look pristine and have nice rows and black soil and everything, because that's not the reality of growing, nor is it the most beneficial to soil to prep the soil that way, to prep your garden that way. It's not natural for it to do that. There's a lot of activity and things growing and forming in the soil that don't have a chance to do what they need to do if you keep pulling everything out and stripping it, basically, or exposing it to the elements where it will die. And then you've lost out on a tremendous amount of nutritional value being added back into your soil. So here we go. All right, so we've got two beds here. You see the one closest to me and the one farther away. The story behind these, they both had corn growing, was the exact same, planted the same time, same type of corn, etc. But when they first came up, and they were maybe 2 to 3 feet, it was noted that there wasn't a straight stalk. There were a lot of side shoots coming out from the base, and it was just a weird looking corn. So we were advised to trim off. So we did. On this plot right here, no, actually on that one, this one we let it be, and then that one got trimmed. And so after it was trimmed, as you can see, they shot up. Now some of those have been bent over because they're done, but you can see how tall they got to standard corn size. There were some oddities when we did have the corn. So in asking some of the experts here who happened to be here one day, they said it's probably something in the seeds itself, and that corn has been highly hybridized, and so eventually you get to a point where things just get weird. And so it wasn't just our experience, it was the experience of many other farmers here in Hawaii, in particular, seeds that were brought in from the mainland. Hi Cora, thanks for coming back and joining me. I'm back here in the garden again, talking about this corn. So when this corn was done, I said, let's just chop and drop. So basically you chop it and you drop it right back into place. So you can see here's the stem. That corn was never actually pulled up, and this one too. It was just, you just cut it with a sharp sickle. If you don't have one of these and you work in the garden, you're working too hard. So you want one that's short. You see that, and then you see that serrated edge. That's the winner, the serrated edge. This thing will cut through, and because it's short and that this is short, it's like an extension of your hand. It's fantastic. So anyway, available at Walmart, wherever. They're not that expensive. $12, $15 for this, and this is, I don't know, maybe 8-9 years old. So anyway, so you just cut the plant here. So why do you cut it and not pull it up? Because, well, the roots are all in there. They're stabilizing the soil. There's a lot of bacteria, good bacteria and fungi and all kinds of things down in the soil, growing and living and getting food from the roots. There's no reason to pull up these roots. This is not going to sprout from this either. So I want to plant another plant. Well, you just come over and you plant right next to it, and then over time this will decompose and all that jazz. So if you look here, so here's the stalks. This wasn't that long ago, and the more rain you have, the more moisture that you have, the faster it decomposes. And so these have really started to decompose. And then I wanted to show you this, and this is why I wanted to come back, because this will be gone. Look. So a lot of the corn was no good. Like I said, it was no good. It didn't, so we just dropped it. If it didn't have disease, which these did not have disease, we just cut it and dropped it down. So this is still decomposing. But this one got happy and it started to sprout. So this is all corn that's growing off an ear that's down inside there. So that was fun. And then I'm going to come around here and show you this ear, because they're literally bursting out of the ear. They're not even in any soil. So you see that? They're just growing in there. And I mean, this is a wonderful thing to show kids. But, and then there it is. And then you can just peel back the layers and see all the roots and everything. And you can see right where it's coming from, right? And how, so this is how you get your kids excited about eating different foods. This is how you get your good kids excited about critical thinking and processes, and the importance of you know, just our land, our soil, and how important that is, and what happens when you do certain things. So look at that. Isn't that fun? So these have been here, and I want to show you that underneath. So you just leave it there, and then underneath there's all kinds of action going on. So you can see this. Look at that. Look at that. So these are decomposers. These are larger decomposers as opposed to worm. Now here's a worm. You see this worm? So that's a composting worm. My guess, it's really small. It's different from an earthworm, right? So earthworms go down into the earth. Composting worms come up to the surface to get decomposing things. And while these guys are actually munching, worms can't do that. And basically what they eat is bacteria. So when you have a healthy thing going on here, and you have these composition worms and different things, composting worms, you should not have a stinky smell, because they're eating the bacteria, and that's what smells. So this is why it's important to just drop things back into the soil, and they're eating it, and then they'll poop, and then they'll die, and then all these things. And so you just let it sit, and you never know, and it's a great experiment. Now, another thing that I did, talking about aesthetic, so you see these are pak choi growing in front of me here. So those were started from seed before, and they were planted in this bed, and they were planted in the next bed over. So they started out exactly the same. They were given the same treatment, except their growing spots. So this is how it was planted. When these were planted, they were exposed to the sun and wind. They got water just like next to it, same amount of water, same amount of fertilizer. And this is what these look like. Okay. These have already been harvested. Down the center, so what we did here on this one is we just bent the corn over to show that it had been harvested. But down the center, we planted a row of pak choi. Most have been harvested. There were some little scragglies. So they were protected from direct sun, the wind, and after about a week of them being in the ground, they got to this size. This size here in front of me is bigger than all the rest next door that have been in the ground for 3 weeks. And the others that were growing down the center were 2 and 3 times the size of that after 2 weeks of being planted. And after 2 weeks of being planted, these were basically about this size. And you can see the leaves are thicker. So if you're growing it at home and you want the most tender leaves, then, you know, protect it a little bit from the shade. And we just let the corn go there. It's uncomfortable for some people to leave the corn like that in their garden because it doesn't look, quote, pretty. But it provides value back to the garden for other plants, for the soil. So once that's harvested, then again, we'll just come in here. We'll just cut here, just cut it right here, drop these down, and then that will start to die and decompose, and then this will rot and decompose and bring compost directly back into this soil over here. And then when we're ready, we'll just move things out of the way and we will plant. So this is what you get a lot of times. All these little roly-polies, they are, again, they eat. They're bigger decomposers. They munch away and chop things down. So that's what I wanted to share about, again, garden aesthetic. It doesn't have to look pretty, but you can get phenomenal results in we experiment. So these are firmer leafed, but you can see this is it. That's as big as it's done. It's not going to get any bigger. So, and everything was the same. It's just being under the protection of the corn stalks, just a little bit. But from the beginning, it gave it a tremendous advantage as far as growing and not have to harden off from the sun and make itself tough to protect itself from the elements. So thanks for joining me, Cora. And if you guys come back later and you watch this and you have any questions, just go ahead and ask. But I'm enjoying the sunshine, and I really miss talking garden stuff with people in person. So I'm gonna have to do more lives just talking about gardening things. So anyway, have a great rest of your Monday. Thank you.